Hello and welcome to our latest edition of Business Spotlight. Today, my guest is Rose Steward from Jenny. Welcome, Rose. Delighted to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No problem. So, Rose, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into setting Jenny up?
Yeah, of course. So I co-founded Jenny with a chap called Stokely Howard. He runs an agency called Trendy Granddads. They're a video agency in Norwich, and I work for a website agency called Quickfire Digital. And the two of us, both young professionals, making our way through our career, doing what we could to build a network and to build a community. And we found that a lot of the networking events available to us were very much dominated by people very experienced in their field. We often felt quite out of our depth, and we didn't kind of know how to play the networking game. So we decided to create our own. The event started, we hosted our first one in 2021. I think we're either on our 7th or 8th events now, and the response has been astronomical. The Norfolk has one of the most incredible young professionals community that I think we're just waiting for an opportunity to get together and show what they can do. And so, you know, we've continued to grow from strength to strength, and that is entirely down to the amazing community we have here. So the events continue.
That's fantastic. And so who is Jenny open to?
So the events are targeted at under 35s. It was always a little bit controversial to do anything that's got a targeted audience, whether that's on gender, whether that's on industry, and of course whether that's on age. We don't ID at the door. You know, if you're 39 and you want to come along, like, we're not going to stop you. But we sort of say, if you're looking to grow your network, if you're young and you're ambitious, then it's an open event to you. You know, if you're someone who is kind of not very interested in networking, you know, you're someone who, even, you know, if you're in your early 20s, but to you a job is a job, you're not interested in going any further than where you are now, and kind of your main goal is to exit whatever you're doing, then perhaps the events won't be right for you. So it's about the attitude just as much as it is the age group.
Yeah, absolutely. And having that ambition and desire to go out and meet people and progress in your career, whatever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. And what about geographical areas that you cover then, Rose? You mentioned Norfolk there.
Yeah, so we're both Norwich. We're both Norwich based. So we started the events in Norwich, and we have since then grown them out to other areas. We've just hosted our first Ipswich event, which was amazing. The response was astronomical, and considering it was a completely new area and we were just guessworking our way through it, we couldn't have asked for more. So we have our second Ipswich event coming up in a couple of weeks, which is really, really exciting. And we're hoping to grow it out to even more cities across the UK, kind of starting with where we know, you know, next up, I think we'll look at sort of Cambridge and Essex areas, because again, they're on our doorstep, but we'd love to go UK wide eventually. That's the big sky dream.
That's the dream. Very good. And since you launched Jenny, what have you enjoyed the most?
I think it's just, I always say this because I'm now, it was actually that those events, I wasn't working at the time in what I do now. I'm now an events manager by trade, in sort of my main job. And I think it really opens up my love for event management, which is what I decided to turn my career to full time. It's running an event is so stressful. There's lots of little stresses that people don't realize. They think, you know, it's just, oh, I can organize a dinner party, I can organize an event for 60 people. And to an extent, there isn't much more to it than that. But it's an event relies on so many tiny nuances going correctly. And if one thing goes wrong, it's a domino effect. You know, one person who is key to the event can't make the day. Suddenly you've got to change the venue, you've got to change the caterers, your budget changes, everything changes. And so there's all these little things that have to line up perfectly for an event, and the stress levels of it can be so high. But there's this moment, it's normally about 3/4 of an hour in, and it's normally when most people have arrived, people have all had a drink, it's before we have the speaker on, and I normally stand there with my hands on my hips looking cross with Stokely, and now with Rebecca, who is our fellow director who we brought on board a sort of late part of last year, and say, oh my God, look what we've done. This is amazing. I'm so proud of us. And see all these people laughing and chatting and getting to know each other and doing something out of their comfort zone and thanking us and asking when the next one is. And those tiny moments are why we do it, or certainly why I do it, definitely.
Yeah, that's lovely, just to have that moment in every event when you stand back and really appreciate everything that's gone on to make it a success.
Yeah,
and with that event management experience under your belt, then is there one thing that you would pick out that you would do differently if you had all of your time again in Jenny?
I think we tried to go it alone before we got on extra help, maybe a bit longer than we should have, to the point where I sort of referred to the events as our baby for a while, and I said to Stokely, if this was our child, you and me would be getting a divorce, and you'd be getting full custody, because I am not pulling my weight at all. Social services would be on my doorstep, and it wasn't until we brought the lovely Becca Campbell, that we realised probably just how much we were struggling to run it, the two of us, because we were trying to do this all alongside our full-time jobs. And between the three of us, there are frustrations, there are difficulties, there are disagreements, but we get stuff done together. And I would so recommend to people who are trying out a project and find themselves struggling, there's this huge stigma about asking for help, not as in asking for help from other people, but actually saying we're going to change the whole business dynamic, so we bring on more people, whether that's creating a board or hiring in a consultant, or, as we went, bringing in a third director. But it doesn't make you a failure. It means that it's got bigger, which is great, and it's gone a little bit out of control. And with all things, the bigger something gets, the more help you need. And I wish we'd recognized that a little bit sooner. And the processes we have in place now, the regular meetings, things like that, if we'd have had those 6 months earlier, I think it would have saved us a lot of time and stress. And yeah, that would be my biggest thing I would have told myself, definitely.
Yeah, but amazing piece of advice to be able to share, and that ability to ask for help is so important, especially when, as you mentioned, a couple of the different types of help that are out there for businesses starting up. And you mentioned there are still some frustrations, that's natural as businesses grow. What are the biggest challenges facing the network now?
I'd say that as we're growing, trying new cities comes with new challenges. You know, we have to guess which venues are popular and which venues will suit us and suit our needs. Just because we think they're awesome doesn't mean that the locals will feel the same. Trying to trying to grow mailing lists from nothing. You know, in Norwich, we started a mailing list based on both of us having hundreds of contacts in our network, having worked for several companies, being able to reach out to friends, family, locally. That was easy. In Ipswich, the only slight advantage we had was I'm from Ipswich originally, but we are going back over a decade. So, you know, even then my contacts were no longer very relevant. So that's going to be a big challenge for us, growing the business in new areas. And I think the other challenge that we're kind of in the process of sorting is, as I mentioned, it's getting bigger and it's getting more complicated, and everything's getting bigger. You know, the size of the events we want to do, the marketing campaigns, the budgets we're putting behind things, the branding elements. And with that comes process. The bigger something gets, the more you have to keep it organized. And I am not good at process. I'm actively terrible at it. And the three of us are sort of quite often trying to hash things out. Whereas I know several other events locally where everything's so on point, it sort of runs like clockwork. And I think we're not quite there yet. It's not something that comes naturally to any of us. So we're working it together. We're finding ways that make it work. But I think in the long run, you know, we could get some of these things in place now. In the long run, it's going to help us scale it easier, quicker. So that's, you know, it's a good positive challenge to have.
Absolutely. And the fact that you know it and you can acknowledge it about an area that you need to focus means that as you go into that period of even bigger growth, you know what it is you want to focus on. And
100%.
When you think about looking at the growth that's ahead of you and the key ingredients that are needed to make a business successful, what would you say are the key things that stand out to you from your experience of setting something up and getting it off the ground?
I'd say, first of all, if you don't know what you're doing, that's fine. None of us did when we started. We have learned so much along the way. And if you run, whether you're launching a product, or I'm going to go with an event because that's what I know. If you're running your event for your first time and a million things go wrong, it just doesn't matter. Everything, some of the best event managers I've ever met will have things go wrong on the day of their event. It's the nature of the beast. What does matter is your ability to stay calm and keep going and learn from it. I have a page which is a Rose's, I'm going to say F ups because I don't want to swear on your channel, and it's everything I ever learn, and it's tiny things. It's going along and realizing, oh my goodness, we've got to the venue and there's no Wi-Fi, and this person wants to do a PowerPoint presentation. I can't access it. Before I leave, PowerPoint, if there is one, is saved to the desktop so I can access it even with no internet. It's a tiny thing, but when you've got a million other things to think about, it's really stressful. So definitely would recommend, don't overthink it. Learn every time, take any advice you can get, listen to people, keep an open mind, but do not berate yourself when things go wrong, because they're going to massively. And it doesn't make you a failure. It means that you're new at something and you're trying. I mentioned already, lean on people as much as you can. People are fountains of knowledge. And every time I speak to someone in my network who specializes in events, a great example is lovely Leanne from Mills and Reeve. She's my guru, and she'll always help me if I need her help and just need to sound check. And I think the other thing is get constant feedback from your, I'm going to say customers because I can't think of another term. For us, we call them, our network, our community, our family, but ultimately the people who are buying our tickets, our customers, are the sole people we need to please. Listen to them, talk to them. Don't be offended if they don't like something. There's going to be elements they don't like. And we've shaped and changed our events so much over the past 2 years based on what people want. We're constantly trying new things. And again, stuff goes wrong. We try something and it's a flop. That's perfectly okay. Just keep listening and don't be afraid to change things if they're not right.
That's fantastic. Some really practical advice in there as well, Rose. So thank you so much. I'm sure everyone who's watching and listening will take that on board. So it's been an absolute pleasure to meet with you today. Before we wrap up, a couple of questions for you. One is just around how people can find out more about you generally, but also any particular events you've got upcoming that you want to signpost for people to be able to sign up to.
Yeah, 100%. So Gen E, which is Generation Entrepreneur, so Gen-E, can be found on LinkedIn. That's where we update our community. We just reached 1,000 followers, which is super exciting. And so you can have a look on there for kind of regular updates, what's happening and what's coming up. In terms of events, on the 16th of March, we have our next Norwich events, which is, I believe, around St. Patrick's Day. So we're hosting it in an Irish bar in the city. We've got the amazing Kelly Cartwright speaking from Core Recruiter, which is going to be awesome. And then the following week, we've got our second ever Ipswich events happening on the 23rd of March. So again, if you want to have a nosy at the page, it will have all the dates on there and everything you need to know. Give us a follow. And again, if you want to come along to an event and give us feedback, we are all ears. We're a constant feedback loop. Please do feel free to share it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So head on down, take a look, sign up to one of the events, and hopefully you'll get a chance to meet Rose in person as well. Rose, thank you.
Absolutely. Add me on LinkedIn.
Time today. Wonderful to see you, and wish you all the very best with Jenny.
Thank you. I appreciate it.